guys, you probably all know by now that I'm a major professional female wrestling fan, and as such, I've always loved watching women's wrestling. Even to this day, I watch a lot of the indies on YouTube. But the truth is that those of you who were on the internet, like during the late 90s and the early 2000s, know all too well that the abundance of women's professional wrestling material that can be found today on YouTube alone and through various other websites and women's wrestling portals was not always available in this shape, form, and in this kind of abundance. I remember that back in the days, in the early 2000s, you had to like surf the internet for hours to find a couple of relevant pictures, and indeed, back in those days, I pretty much saved whatever material I came across. Pictures, videos. I had like a handful of videos. I remember I had, I don't know, about 5 or 6, 6 or 7 second long or maybe 10-second long videos, and some of which I do not exactly know where they originated to this day. But I actually did collect some stuff that has since completely disappeared off the internet, and I do have the material on my computer saved back then. Mostly pictures, of course, because as I told you, videos were like very few and far between, and they were prized possessions back in those days. If you wanted to purchase videos, you had to buy VHS tapes, and they were cumbersome, and they were really difficult to actually transfer to a computer format. So that's how things worked back then. Pictures were like essentially what the videos are this day, and I had plenty of them. Plenty in the sense that compared to the standards of those days, I had plenty. I had like hundreds of pictures, so not really that many, but I had quite a few. So in this video, I would like to talk to you about a couple of early online women's wrestling phenomena that have since disappeared completely, and one of those, the first one, is the Pin Down Girls. Now, Pin Down Girls used to be a women's wrestling troupe run by a lady wrestler called Nikki. Now, Nikki wasn't exactly a professional female wrestler in the sense that I do not personally believe that she had any kind of pro training, even though in her videos she got to wrestle talent like Crystal White and Lexi Fife at one point, but she had sort of had her own troupe of female wrestlers, and they put on a great show. I remember that I was completely taken by the style of their outfits and by the style of their wrestling. I do believe that to this day you can actually find 1 or 2 of their videos online on YouTube. So yeah, run a search. I think it's the videos were uploaded by a person called Biamba on here. So if they're still available, you will probably find them. And what I found absolutely astonishing about Nikki and her troupe of female wrestlers back then were the absolutely superb leotards and ties that they wore for their belts. So they wore super shiny danskins, and while I do have danskins on right now, I believe that their hosiery was a lot shinier than this. At least that's how the pictures portrayed them. And their leotards were like really high cut thong back ones, so they were like truly sexy. And the action was sort of orchestrated in a manner as to showcase all these assets on display. So yeah, the Pin Down Girls were definitely some of my favorite wrestlers and wrestling videos back in those days. Unfortunately, they have completely gone offline, so if you search for them, they no longer have a website, although they most probably still do have a massive video library, which maybe one day they might, you know, convert somehow and post online. Anyways, I told you I got scores of Bean Down Girls videos off their website, and I'm going to show you a few right here. Yes, well, these pictures, do not expect them to be particularly dazzling quality-wise, because back in those days, even back in those days, these pictures were counted as really small ones, but given the quality of the action and the quality of the attires that they featured, they were nonetheless priceless for me and for quite a few other collectors too. So yes, I actually had an interview done for my website www.women-wrestling.org with Nikki while their site was still online. Though, although this was during the later stages of their online presence, they disappeared shortly afterwards, and you can probably find the interview because I still have it posted on my site. And she told me that, well, it was essentially her husband who convinced her to do this Glow Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling style action, and that the attires and everything were her husband's idea, although she too very much enjoyed wearing those high-cut suits, because she believed that they really showcased her body shape, and they were really advantageous look-wise for her. So yeah, she also told me a few you know, behind-the-scenes details from her shoots. Like back when she was scheduled to wrestle some bigger name, I think. I'm not exactly sure who that was. And she was like, she really got the jitters before the bout. So much so, in fact, that as she climbed into the ring, she got sick and she had to throw up. So yeah, there's a bummer for you. Most of Nikki's matches, and those of her girls too, do lack in high-impact moves and all that pro stuff, you know, the high-flying, hard-slamming stuff. But the action is nonetheless enjoyable, because in most cases the girl really go all out wrestling. It's like, these are like shoot matches. They're really working for that submission, for that pin. And since they're not all that skilled, it takes them quite a while and quite a bit of effort to get to the point where they want to be, so in the bout. So yeah, it's definitely something to watch, and I do personally have a couple of these, a couple of their videos, other videos than the ones that are posted already on YouTube that I mentioned before, and I don't know, I might, you know, post them online sometime. But I don't really want to do it, because what I understood was that they went offline because obviously Nikki had children. Nikki and her husband, they had kids, and the kids at a certain point they had grown, and they were you know, starting to be teased by their peers, by their colleagues and classmates. About their mother's wrestling antics, so that's why they went offline. So yeah, I don't really think I'm going to post them anytime soon. Maybe if I actually get a notice from somebody that it's okay to post them, and maybe in that case, yes. Alright, another such phenomenon that I wanted to talk to you about was the WCSSW, I think it was called. It was another sort of female wrestling league back in those days, who wrestled competitively, and they did submission wrestling. They were led by a female wrestler named Unique Lee, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty sure I'm not. And they actually held a show sometime. It was a really obscure sort of show, even back in those days. The pictures that I picked up were off a single website. They weren't featured anywhere else, and that website has long disappeared since. And as you can see from these pictures right here, these were some pretty interesting matches. The show, the event that they actually shot was called Women's Competitive Submission Wrestling, and it was indeed, it featured quite a cast of characters. They all sort of looked like professional wrestlers, but they did actually wrestle competitively in the show, and I don't know where it was shot. I don't know who the wrestlers were, or rather 99% of the wrestlers were, because I do know Unique Lee from the lineup, and there was another wrestler, a blonde with a superb body, who was called Storm, and she was a member of Unique Lee's stable of female wrestlers, and she too took part at the show, as far as I can tell, because there were like 2 or 3 sort of look-alike blondes there. But I'm pretty sure that Storm was there as well as Unique Lee, and the rest of the cast, I have no idea who they were, what happened to them afterwards, but I don't actually know the results either. I never did know that, not even back when I downloaded the pictures. But there are some victory poses shown there, with the referee raising a wrestler's hand over the other. It looked like a superbly staged show, and I would have probably loved every minute of it if I had gotten it on tape. As far as I'm concerned, these pictures are the only indication that the tournament actually ever took place, and by now you would probably be right to call it all vintage women's wrestling. But here you go. I don't know if you ever heard of it, and if you have, and if you happen to have the actual matches transferred off a tape or whatever, they did probably shoot videos of it. I have no idea about that either. But if you do have it, drop me a comment below. Alright guys, so that's it for this video. I hope you liked the pictures that I showed you. These are sort of like ancient artifacts picked out of the darkest and dustiest nooks and crannies of a professional female wrestling museum. Again, do not hesitate to drop me a comment below, like my video, and follow me on here and on various other social media channels. See you around!